Welcome to my webinar about Amazon Arbitrage. I know you were expecting Friday's recorded copy, however, that live Zoom session did not go too well, and I'm re-recording. I decided that's a little bit better, and I wanted to add a few more things, so here we go. First, what will this webinar cover? We're going to talk about the different Amazon business models. There's arbitrage, there's wholesale, and there's private label. We're going to cover the methods of fulfillment, FBA versus FBM, and I'll go into what those acronyms mean. Next, we'll talk about the business cycle, and we'll do a live example of sourcing a product and seeing how much it sells and if it's profitable or not, as well as learn about the two subscriptions that I use for this, Keepa and Inventory Lab, and their Okay, this is a good time to preface and say English is not my first language, and I'm going to probably mispronounce several things and make mistakes, but I appreciate your patience. So we're going to see how to best utilize those two subscription tools, and then we'll take a look at my profit and loss statement, which I do through Inventory Lab, one of those tools. It pulls automatically everything, reconciles it for us. And lastly, I'll introduce my live bootcamp, which is kicking off on March 17th, Friday. That bootcamp is through Zoom, but you get recorded copies if you can't attend the live one. And again, I'll explain it towards the end. Let's talk about the different Amazon business models, starting with private label. If you've started Googling about Amazon, selling on Amazon, you're probably already getting targeted with YouTube ads about gurus that are making millions on just a few products, buying cheap from China and selling for high. That is private label and is a lot more complicated than they make it sound. Sure, you're buying from a manufacturer in China, but you have to worry about, so this is an example here in my hand, some socks, right? But you have to worry about marketing, PPC campaigns, branding that item, protecting that brand, trademarks, potentially patents if you're actually developing your own product or use of that. Ranking into the first page of Amazon is just, it's a long process. It's not beginner friendly. So while the profits might be higher per item and the better profit margins, the process is a lot more complex. So what I recommend is starting with arbitrage. Arbitrage is reselling existing popular products that you can find locally or on e-commerce already selling on Amazon. With arbitrage, you buy at a store, so say Dove soap or a Fisher-Price toy or some towels can come up with a brand, or Betty Crocker cake mix. And then you research on Amazon whether that item already has a listing, which by the way, with private label, you would have to do all that as well. Create a listing, research keywords, ranking, like professional pictures. Like I said, it is quite a complex and lengthy process. With arbitrage, you do not. You're finding an existing listing on Amazon, finding the item already selling locally or on a website like walmart.com, and then you're just analyzing. You're just looking at, is that item selling often enough to where if I jump on that listing, I'll also get some sales, and is it profitable where it makes sense to sell? A lot of items are sold directly by Amazon themselves, so they're not profitable. Some of them are sold by sellers that are buying wholesale, so very large quantities are very good pricing. So even though you're finding it at the retail store, you can't compete against wholesale, which this brings me to the last business model, wholesale. It is like arbitrage, but just on higher volume. And you typically do need a partnership, and finding those wholesalers are not very easy. You need to build that relationship. You typically need an actual business, and seller certificate is like a lot more, not a lot more, but a little bit more complicated than arbitrage. So the most beginner friendly arbitrage, and this is what we're going to focus on today's webinar. Now there are two methods of fulfillment. FBA, which stands for Fulfilled by Amazon, and FBM stands for Fulfilled by Merchant, or you can think about it, Fulfilled by me. Fulfilled by Amazon would mean you are buying all your product at the store. So say I went and I bought 20 boxes of cake mix. You're packaging all those into a shipping box and sending it off to Amazon warehouse. You list it on the Amazon, on that existing listing, and once Amazon gets a sale, or once a customer purchases that item, Amazon is the one who's going to fulfill it. They're going to do the picking that item from their warehouse, packaging it, send it off to the customer, and deal with any returns and deal with any questions they might get from the customer. Fulfilled by merchant, you're the one who's going to be pending of the sales, and anytime you have a sale, you have to not only store it in your house, but then you have to be going to UPS within certain turnaround time, buying individual shipping labels, which Amazon does get discounted rates, but still you're now fulfilling individual orders. And if you want to scale up and make the process as streamlined, as smooth as possible, I recommend FBA. So that is what I'm doing. I do arbitrage, FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. I send everything to their warehouse. They do charge some storage fees, but it is typically pennies per item per month, unless you go into long-term storage. But the method I teach, we're looking at items that are already selling very often, so we're not going to go into the long-term storage fees. Next, let's talk about business cycle and how do you get started to sell on Amazon. First, you're going to create an account on Amazon Seller Central. By the way, I recommend you create a separate email for selling on Amazon. Do not use your regular customer account email. You want to try to keep things separated. So create whatever Gmail for free and use that to sign up on Amazon as a seller. Create a password. It's going to ask you some information about yourself. If you have a business established like an LLC, you would use that information. If you're operating as a sole proprietorship, which is doable and acceptable, then you would enter your own legal name and information. You can then use your social security number, or you can get a free EIN through a government website and use that. Will you believe I lost the audio for this little section? But anyways, this is just saying you'll also need to enter your real address. Do not enter a virtual one because Amazon could mail you a code for verification purpose. Sometimes they'll also do an interview. The interview is really just to verify that you are who you are, and they also verify some documents like bank statements that you need to provide. Once you've created an account, you can get started on sourcing products, buying products, and sending it to Amazon warehouses for sale. Now keep in mind, when you first create an account, many categories and brands are gated. That means they are restricted and you're not able to sell on those. There are some categories, however, that are not restricted. You can start selling from the get-go. And some examples of that are books, unless they're like special editions, there are a few restrictions there. And clothing, for example. The next step would be preparing it for shipment, packaging it up to Amazon standards, and get it off to their warehouse using their partner carrier, UPS, which you buy through Amazon Seller Central. Lastly, once it arrives to Amazon, they might transfer it to other warehouse further away from where you shipped it off. They typically have you ship it off somewhere close to where you live, but then they might transfer it internally elsewhere. All right, let's do a live sample. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to search an item and see how much it sells and see if it's profitable, if it makes sense for us to sell this on our Amazon account. I don't know if Trader Joe's is everywhere. I don't think so, but we have this store here in California, in the Bay Area. So I was at Trader Joe's yesterday and I saw this General Tso's stir-fry sauce and I bought it. And then today, as I went to re-record this webinar, I thought, why don't I look up this item? Of course, you wouldn't buy the item and then do the research. You do the research ahead of buying the item. So what I recommend is go to a store and take some pictures of a section of an aisle and then go home and look up each item on the search bar on Amazon. As I did here on my screen, I searched Trader Joe's General Tso's stir-fry sauce and some results came up. We see it's not directly the first one, but we do have it. Am I recording the screen? Yes. We do have it right here. We have a 2-pack. So let's look if this 2-pack is profitable. Now, while we're here, I want to touch on a few things. We see here the Add to Cart button. This is referred to as the buy box. The buy box is when Amazon automatically assigns a seller. So if I were to click there, it would add it to my cart and the sale would be attributed to Westfield and Revelstock. Now, they are not the only ones offering this item. If we scroll down a little bit, which not everybody knows, but if you scroll down a little bit more, you will see all the other sellers offering a specific item on Amazon. If we click on that, it'll open up all the other sellers. And you'll quickly notice the one that has the buy box, which was that Westfield and Revelstock store, isn't always the cheapest one. We have two other sellers, Sunny Sales and Better Pantry, offering a better price on it. However, because they are doing fulfilled by merchant, Amazon is prioritizing and giving the buy box to the store that is doing fulfilled by Amazon. How do I know which one is doing fulfilled by Amazon, which one is doing fulfilled by merchant? Very easy to tell. If it says ships from Amazon.com, is fulfilled by Amazon. And if it says ships from any other random name, then it's fulfilled by merchant. And then if it ships from Amazon and it's sold by Amazon, typically those listings, that pricing is very hard to beat. So I would stay away from any listings that are also sold by Amazon. When you're listing the item, if we find that this item is profitable and we want to sell it, I recommend matching the lowest FBA price, not the lowest FBM price, because as we can see, you can still get the buy box priced a little bit higher. Another thing I want to touch on is that let's pretend we had two sellers selling at the exact same price, $19.39. Amazon would give the buy box to whoever has the fastest shipping to the customer. The buy box is very dynamic. Amazon uses a very complex algorithm. Obviously, it's not disclosed, but what we do know is that it looks at pricing, it looks at shipping, it looks at the rating of the seller, all in different weighting to that algorithm. But if you match the price, the buy box will rotate amongst all sellers. That's why you shouldn't be worrying about trying to be the very best pricing or beat anybody else. If you match it at the FBA price, eventually you should be seeing some sales. If not, then we'd look at how to troubleshoot that or what's going on. Okay, next, let's scroll down on this listing until we find product details. And over here, I'm going to look at two key things. One is the ASIN, Amazon Standard Identification Number. Amazon creates a unique ID for every single listing and variation that they have on their website. And this ASIN is key because we're going to use it to do our next steps, research. And then there is a bestseller rank, for short, BSR. And this one is telling me the ranking out of all Amazon's catalog. It's telling me where is this item ranking, but it is on a very specific point in time, right? This is as of the last refresh, which might have happened a minute ago, a few minutes ago. So it's not telling me the full picture, but it's giving me a pretty good idea to where this item might be. 143,000 in groceries is not bad, it's decent. I do try to stay for groceries on a ranking above, like less than 100,000. The closer it is to zero, the more often that item, the better ranking, the more often it's selling on Amazon. So 143 is not terrible, but good enough to where I would do my next step in the research, which is seeing that bestseller ranking history. That's where Keepa comes into play. So let's talk a little bit about Keepa. Keepa is used by pretty much every seller I know. Why? It's a very powerful tool. It tells you the history of bestseller rank and a lot of other information that we're not going to go over this webinar. We're just going to focus on the bestseller rank. And it's only $20 a month, which for the different subscriptions that you could use for Amazon, this one is the best priced one. So I think that's probably why every seller has it. Let's put this ASIN into Keepa, keepa.com. We're going to go to search and I'm going to dump it in there, copy paste. As you can see it right away, right? It's an identification number. So it right away brought up the listing that we were looking at in Amazon. And here, this green line is showing me the BSR, the bestseller ranking over time. I could switch this between just the day or show me all, which, I mean, that's too much, right? We're not going to focus how it was selling 5 years ago. We're going to focus the last year, the last 3 months is usually a good view. It also summarizes it down here. As you can see, bestseller ranking, the current is in the 143,000. As we saw on the Amazon listing, the average in the last 90 days is around 103, and in the last year is around 110. So it's pretty consistent there between the 100 and 150. Sometimes when it's selling really good, it can drop, as we can see, 36,000. And sometimes when it hasn't sold for a few days, it drops to that 140 range. So as I said on Amazon, right, 143, it was good enough to where I'm going to do the next step. And actually when I'm in this next step, I realized is pretty much the worst ranking that it could have. It's often better. That's not a word. It's often much better than that. There we go. It sells often enough. We can see that also in the data, how often, how many drops it has. This data tab over here, the third tab, will tell us it sells about 30 times in a month, 83 in the last 90 days, and 130. It doesn't sell super often, but sells often enough to where maybe I'll send a small batch, 6-10 items, see how long it takes to sell those out. But it will also depend on profit, right? If it's barely making any profit, might not make sense to even bother doing it, especially because this product, as you saw, is glass. It's going to take more prep time. I'm gonna have to, and not only is glass, but it's a 2-pack. So this product, I have to bubble wrap it to protect the glass and put a special sticker that says this is a set, do not separate, since it's a 2-pack. And the amount of work, right, it just might not make it worth it. If you're trying to scale up, if you're trying to do this as part-time and minimal hours, like I focus, I already have a full-time job. I have 2 little girls, as some of you may know. So I focus on items that are easy to prep as well to meet my criteria. I'd rather make a little bit less profit per item, but be able to turn it around right away. Load it in my car, bring it to the garage, print out some labels, stick it on, send it off. I don't want to worry about having to wrap things up and all these other, it's really time consuming. So I see that, I take that into account as well. I'd rather, like I said, make a little bit less, like say $2 versus $3. It's not worth it to me, that extra $1 if I had to spend 5 minutes on it. If I do the math, what would that be? $12? That's, yeah, if it takes 5 minutes to make just $1 extra, that's like getting paid $12 per hour. Not worth it. I'd rather take the lower profit and keep things moving. So where was I here? Let's pretend that this is just an easy item to prep and it sells often enough. So my next step would be grabbing this same ASIN and putting it into Inventory Lab to calculate the profitability. So I'm going to paste it into this Research Scout tab. What are you looking for? I'm looking for this ASIN. Inventory Lab is connected to your Amazon account, so it pulls all the data from Amazon directly. It pulls things like weight, package dimensions, the current ranking. Like I said, it's linked, so it pulls everything from Amazon, and then it calculates, because Amazon fees for FBA, they're set, right, based on product, based on category, based on weight. The fees are set. So Inventory Lab being connected to your Amazon account, it pulls all that information, calculates, and then it's able to spit out the profitability for that item. It's also matching already. Inventory Lab is here, is automatically pulled the list price. It's smart enough to where it's suggesting, right? If you're doing FBA, it tells you match that buy box, so it's pulling already list price. I could override that and say, please calculate it with a 19.5, so I could modify that, but like I recommended, match the buy box. And then the cost per unit, we're going to enter our price, which I paid $2.99 for this one. Because it's 2, we'll double that, so that's $5.98. Groceries in California and in a total of 36 states, there's no tax on groceries, so I don't have to add anything there. If I were buying an item that has tax, say for example a toy, here in my city I believe the sales tax is 10.25. I could either pay the tax and then put it as a deduction expense cost, right? Cost of goods sold. I would enter the tax as well. Or I could get a sales tax certificate exemption and show that to the store. But not all stores are reseller friendly, so you might start getting some questions if you do that. That's why I love groceries. There's no tax to worry about. Anyways, $5.98. And we can see here for that list price, our profit would be 1.37, which would give us a return on investment of almost 23%. So we invested $6 and we made 1.37 if that buy box price stays pretty stable, which let's go back to Keepa because I didn't touch on that. This pink line over here, we were talking about the green line, which is bestseller ranking. The pink line shows you what price is the buy box. So for the most part, you see it is at the 1939. Sometimes it's a little more and sometimes it's a little less. Sometimes it goes like 1843. It doesn't seem to last, so it might get bought right away and then it goes back up to that 19 level. It is something though to keep in mind because let's say everybody else decides to start selling it at 1849. If I put that here, if I enter the 1849, since it does go down to that, the profit would only be 60 cents and making a return on investment of just 10%. Now, all that work just to make 60 cents, this item doesn't really, like, it's something that I would pass on. Sure, it could make $1.30, but it just requires too much work for me. But if you're starting out, if you want some practice, right, you have to also see these, maybe your initial products, you're just seeing it as a university, a college, a practice. Like, I'm gonna sell some items and as long as I break even, you are practicing how to package, how to label, how to get your systems going. But if you want to scale, it's something that you'll probably pass on. Let's do another example. Let's pretend we were at Walmart and we saw this Betty Crocker cherry chip cake mix for $1.50. And so we type it on the Amazon search bar, and it comes up with these results. I wanted to show this one because there are some listings that while they're arbitrage, the seller is adding a unique item, a private label item like this measuring spoon, just to prevent other people jumping on that listing, because then they could claim, well, this is a private label listing, it does have this spoon that you can't offer, therefore you cannot jump on this listing. It's a way, a way to protect. Same with this one, right, Vela? Like, who wants a magnet with a random name? Nobody wants this. No buyer wants this. But the buyer is just looking at this, but you as a seller is preventing you from also jumping on that listing and getting part of the sales. It's a little bit, different strategy. Just focus on the plain ones that don't have all of that and share your sales with any other seller. So let's find this listing 1188 and let's look at if it's profitable. So again, I'm going to scroll down to find the product details section, get the ASIN number. Wow, 4,000 bestseller rank, right? This one is selling like all the time. And we're going to put it into Keepa first to see bestseller ranking over time. We see here that in the last year, it is 10,000 plus. I didn't even need to look at Keepa, but just to show you the bestseller ranking. And then the buy box is a little bit all over the place, this pink line. And it can go as low as 963. It seems to be going that low pretty often. So I'm going to base, right now it's at 1190, but it's been very recently at that lower price. So I'm going to calculate my profit using that one, thinking ahead that it might go back to that level. So 996, let's put that ASIN into Inventory Lab, search it. Again, it is matching. Inventory Lab matches the buy box, but say I want to do my cost analysis with the I forgot, what did we say? Like anyone here, 996. Let's do that. And I paid 150 times 2 because it's a 2-pack, $3. All right, that wouldn't make anything. So when it drops, it's like not every item makes sense to sell. So when it drops, I don't know, Galactic Shop might be buying it on clearance, like for 50 cents or from a wholesaler, who knows. I'm saying Galactic Shop because that's the buy box, right? It tells you their FBA, tells you the name of the seller. These other people might just be waiting it out until, because it sells so often. So even if a few offer it at a great price, they run out of stock and then the selling price goes up and it still gets sale. So you could still offer it at that 11.88, which you'd only make $1. Listen, if these were amazing products, I wouldn't be showcasing on the webinar. So that's why. So, they're not profitable. That doesn't mean that every other item on Amazon is this small of a profit. If I was doing this example and it pulled up a $3-5 profit and it was a replen, I wouldn't be just giving away that item here. So this is just to show you the process of how to research bestseller ranking, buy box, and then looking up if it's profitable or not, making your decision based on that. Now let's talk about fees. I mentioned Keepa costs about $20 a month, but if you prepay for the entire year worth of subscription, you save a little bit. I believe it then costs $200 versus $240. And did I do it right? Yes. And Inventory Lab is $70 a year. I wish, a month. And similarly, if you prepay the entire year, you save a couple months, so it costs $700. It is a lot more expensive. However, it connects to your Amazon, and anytime you have a sale, it reconciles, it tracks of all your cost of goods, which Amazon does not. Even if you have a seller account with Amazon, it does not. There's nowhere to enter your expenses, such as the cost of supplies like boxes, tape, the cost of subscriptions you may have, the cost of goods sold. Nowhere in Amazon can you enter that. The expenses tab. Let me see if I can show you. So we have the other expenses here. And Inventory Lab makes everything easy. You saw from that profitability section where it's very user friendly to actually listing your products, your inventory. I prepare my shipments using Inventory Lab, to accounting. It does it on an accrual basis. It takes the cost of goods sold at the time of sale and puts it in that month. So at the time of tax, it's very easy to provide that profit and loss statement. While I'm talking about fees, I also want to mention Amazon has a fee as well. When you first create an account, you could choose an individual Amazon account type, which is going to charge you an extra $1 per item sold. Or you can have the Pro account, which is going to charge you $40 a month, no matter how many units you sell. So if you know you're going to scale up, if you know you're going to be committed to Amazon and do this and sell over 40 items a month, which is honestly not hard, then the $40 ends up being a wiser decision. So we've got Amazon Pro at $40, Keepa at $20, Inventory Lab at $70 a month, and lastly, I use AZ Labels, I believe, which is $9 a month. It just makes printing the shipping labels out of Amazon website a little bit easier. Altogether, I spend $140 a month, more or less, on subscriptions. Even with those costs in mind, I'm going to show you my first 3 months profit. So here you're looking at my profit and loss statement through Inventory Lab. Like I said, it's tied to my Amazon account, so it's reconciling every sale and assigning the cost of goods to the month where that item sold. And we can see that in January of 2022, I was getting ready to sell on Amazon. So I bought a thermal printer, I bought labels, I paid for the subscriptions, and then I sent in my first shipment, and my first sale came in February, towards the beginning of February. By the end of February, I already profited $108, which is more, by the way, than what the base tier of my bootcamp cost. First month, $100. Second month, $1,500, and third month, $1,100. So on my first 3 months, I made, all right, technically, yeah, I do have to subtract that. So my first 4 months, I made 26 minus 4, about 2,000. Now in 2022, if we look at the full year, I made $70,000 in sales, gross sales. And what not many people will show you is how much, the bottom line, how much they profited. You can see here, I profited last year 6,000. I know a lot of videos that you'll see and ads will tell you, they're making millions. They don't even touch on profit. And while 6,000 doesn't sound like a lot, I want you to keep on mind this is on paper. I deducted several things to arrive to that 6,000. Some things I deducted that were not needed, were not due to Arbitrage, an Adobe subscription, Jungle Scout subscription. These were tools that I was starting to explore private label. I still haven't launched my first one. We're already in March 2023. But I was starting to do my research last year, so I deducted it here since Inventory Lab keeps track of all expenses, made it easier for me. And also it's not counting all of the cashback. Since I buy inventory using credit card, I get anywhere from 1% to 5% back on credit card. And that is not taxable, and therefore it's part of my profit, right? I was able to spend that, but it's not counted here. So between that cashback on my credit card, some Rakuten cashback, and some websites offering deals, like for example Kohl's, if sometimes they have these time periods where if you spend $50, they give you $10 back to spend. That's not reflected anywhere here, but this year in February, so last month, I spent $1,700 on a purchase on Kohl's, and I got $340 of Kohl's cash, which I was able to spend on my personal shopping, and it wouldn't be reflected on this year's profit. However, it's significant money, right? So that's why I say 6,000 on paper. In actuality, I made closer to, accounting for all of those other things, closer to 8,000. What's also important to note is the time spent. If I made 8,000 and I spent full time doing Amazon arbitrage, that would be terrible numbers. However, as I've mentioned, I have a full-time job, corporate job, and I have 2 little girls. I don't have much spare time. I do this in pockets of time, like when they're sleeping or sometimes on the weekend. I've calculated, it's not something I track to the dot, right? I don't clock in anywhere, but I've calculated I've spent about 100 hours last year, mostly upfront, learning, researching, sourcing. And then because I've focused on replenishable items, meaning I can just buy them when I run low on stock, I can just go to the store, buy them for the same price off the shelf. The rest has been more of a maintenance. I only ship once or twice a month, so it's about 4 hours to maybe up to 10 hours, depending the shipment. And I try to get out large shipments, but only once or twice a month. On top of that, I schedule UPS to pick up the packages from my place, so I don't have to bother loading the car and doing multiple trips there. If we do like the 8,000 total profit value divided by about 100 hours, it's $8 an hour. That's a really, really well-paid job. You can do this part-time, you can do this full-time. It just, it can fit your needs. It's really flexible. So I really like Arbitrage and recommend Arbitrage. If you liked what you're seeing, if this has piqued your curiosity and you want to get started, I teach every step more in depth in my bootcamp. The base tier is $97. It includes 5 classes, which you can join live. They will be through Zoom, or you can just wait for the recorded copy. So it's 5 classes every Friday, starts March 17 all the way to April 14th. We'll also have 2 class reunions, 3 months and 6 months after start date, to check on progress, answer any questions, share success stories. And it comes also with 3 guides, just kind of like notes, how to get ungated, how to create your account. Oh, and a Facebook access to a group for alumni, those that graduate from the bootcamp. There's also a premium for $50 more, $147, that includes 5 office hours, so 5 additional hours where we'll just focus on questions and eliminated roadblocks. It includes a 30-minute one-on-one coaching time, so only between you and me, and a list, it's called lead list, with 10 profitable items to jumpstart. It's not going to be a $1, what we saw. That wouldn't make it into the lead list. 10 profitable items to jumpstart your journey on Amazon. If you're interested, go to fba-to-the-moon.eventbrite.com and get your tickets there. Again, attendance, joining the Zoom is not required. It's just encouraged so that you can get your questions in. If not, you can just get a recorded copy and ask your questions throughout the week, and I'll answer them either directly or in the next session. Now, the bootcamp is certainly not required to have success. We're in the formational era. You can just pick it, watch the webinar again, slow it down, pick at different keywords I've said, research on YouTube or join different Facebook groups, join my Instagram, FBA to the Moon. You can learn at your own pace for free. However, if you like somebody hand-holding you and that sense of community and you want to get jump-started, then for 97 or 147, you can join the bootcamp again at fbatothemoon.eventbrite.com. I'm super excited to see where you take this Amazon arbitrage journey.